Welcome, listener, to another great edition of the podcast. We're Coco and Daltz, and we talk about movies and stuff. I'm not Coco.
Way to be specific. And I'm not Daltz.
It's streaming stuff. It's like stuff that's on Netflix and Disney Plus, and, well, that's been about it lately.
Yeah.
Even though we'd like to, diversify and be all over, we've pretty much done Netflix every time.
Yeah, that's because we haven't really seen a whole lot on anything else that we've been interested in reviewing. So.
What happened to Amazon Prime? You were on a good schedule there, and then all of a sudden things just dropped off. It's almost like there's been like a shutdown of production or something like that. I'm not sure what's happening.
I haven't heard anything about that. I don't know.
No, there's nothing in the news about it. So Coco, tell us, what are we talking about in this episode of the podcast?
In this episode, we are reviewing Ratched, the brand new-ish series from Netflix. It just got released last week. It's 8 episodes. They're an hour each. It's an origin story of Nurse Ratched, the iconic character from the book and movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Sarah Paulson plays the title character. So Nurse Ratched had a bad childhood. She got bounced around from foster home to foster home. She had a foster brother who she was close to. They ended up getting separated. Now it's 1947. They're adults. He has murdered 4 priests. It's not alleged. It's not accused of. He legit murdered 4 priests. That was the opening scene of the entire series. Mm-hmm. And he is in a mental hospital to determine whether he is competent to stand trial. Nurse Ratched manages to finagle a job at this mental hospital because she wants to, A, influence the decision to have him declared mentally unfit to stand trial, because if he goes to trial, he's getting the death penalty, because this is 1947.
Oh, yeah.
And B, she wants to bust him out. So that is pretty much the barest minimum through line through the entire series. The whole thing is just big and messy. There's lots of other characters who all have their own storylines and plots, and even the character of Nurse Ratched herself in any given episode has different stuff going on and other motivations just besides helping out her foster brother. So I know Daltz has a lot to say about this, so I'm just going to throw it straight to Daltz. What'd you think?
I loved it. I thought it was great. Can we watch it again?
Oh my God, it took us like a week just to watch 8 episodes.
So usually we blast through something pretty good. If we find something, we assign it, we go to all the pre-production meetings and everything like that, and we get, we decide on what we're going to do, then we bear down. We are professionals to the utmost. And sometimes we'll watch 2 or 3 episodes in a night if we have the time, if it's something like this.
That's why they pay us the big bucks.
That's why we're getting all that money, is because people are just, waiting with bated breath for our comments on these things. So this one came out. It dropped on September 18th. That's 11 days from this recording, and that's 8 episodes in 11 days, which is sloth-like for us.
That's really bad for
Usually
us.
We blast through them, like I said, and the reason was, from my perspective anyway, I don't want to speak for Coco, but I just hated it. I just didn't like it at all. So based on, like Coco said, the Nurse Ratched, the iconic character of Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the Ken Kesey book, and also the Milos Forman movie from 1975 starring Jack Nicholson and Danny DeVito and a cast of other characters in the as the asylum mates. This is essentially the origin story of a very iconic character. So whenever you go into the hospital, or somebody goes into the hospital and they have a grouchy nurse, what do they call that grouchy nurse? They call that grouchy nurse Nurse Ratched. So this is somebody who has gone into the zeitgeist. This is a character that is out there for everybody, even if you haven't seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I have not. But this one was just, I don't know where to start, Coco. I really don't.
You hated it so much. I thought you were just gonna have your bullet points of everything you hated. And
I do, actually.
Oh, okay. All right.
I also have it on the review on cocoanddaltz.com if anybody's interested in following along as
the cliff notes.
Yes, if they want to just review and listen at the same time. But I want to start it with the positives first.
Okay.
So let's start off with the positives. The sets were really cool.
Yeah, the costumes.
The costumes were above board, brilliant. The colors were vibrant. It was a very vibrantly filmed production. Everything popped. But I have to go on a tangent here. I think I might have mentioned this on a previous podcast, is that whenever you go into these period pieces, the cars are always really shiny and new.
Yeah, they are.
And that's not the way cars are. There's going to be a rust bucket in the parking lot somewhere. There's going to be somebody who doesn't shine their car every day.
Especially at a mental hospital in 1947.
Well, and you know that the people that are driving there are the workers at the mental hospital. They're not making a whole whack of cash.
Right.
So why do they have all these brand new 1947 cars, or 46 or 45, and they're all sparkling new? But anyway, so I digress. The point is the sets and everything like that was really good. The acting, I thought, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, Coco, because we didn't rehearse this part, but I thought the acting was very good because I had revulsion for a lot of the characters. And I think that was the idea, is that you weren't supposed to sympathize with any of them. You were supposed to just kind of, endure the story. I think that's it.
Yeah, I'm torn on the acting.
Yeah.
Like, most of the people in this, I think, deserved better. So, like, Sarah Paulson is just completely gifted and fantastic, but I thought that even she couldn't elevate the material.
So Sarah Paulson
played Nurse Ratched.
And background, she was
Marsha Clark in The People vs. O.J. Simpson,
which we loved.
Yeah, so she was
also an American Horror Story.
Right, but even though she's an amazing actress, I felt the material was so bad that there were only a few times when I was like, that was a great scene. Like, otherwise, I wasn't getting it from her. Cynthia Nixon and Corey Stoll and Charlie Carver, who played Huck the nurse, I liked the three of them across the board.
Yeah.
But Corey Stoll should have been a bigger part, I thought. Like, he deserved better. Cynthia Nixon deserved better. Sarah Paulson deserved better. Vincent D'Onofrio, who appeared in a few episodes, he deserved better. Like, it just... I liked... And Finn Wittrock as Nurse Ratched's foster brother, I felt he was just hopelessly miscast.
Yes, I agree with that. I wasn't a huge fan of Stoll. I thought Judy Davis was fantastic in this.
She was another one. The last couple episodes, I thought she really upped her game. But like the first 6 episodes, like the way they wrote her character was just like she was such a buffoon.
Right.
And there's nothing you can really do with that. So.
And she was also like the tension between her and Ratched, because she was the head nurse and then Ratched comes in and then all of a sudden she's the head nurse and she takes her place and there's this conflict there. And she was very much, like you said, she was a buffoon, but she was also like a cartoon villain in some ways against Paulson's character, against Ratched. And yet I felt, but toward the end of the movie, or to the end of the series, I should say, I identified with her the most, or I liked her character the most, I should say, because she had some genuine, authentic things that happened to her, and then she had her heart broken, and then she had this and she had that. Even though she was the grouchy, stereotypical nurse, I still had some affinity for her. So that was to me a really impressive performance given the material, because she did things with her gestures and her body language and her the way she delivered her lines and things like that. It was very interesting, whereas some of the other ones were just very, very much like they were in American Horror Story, like they were delivering these things and you were expecting organ music right after they said the line, and it didn't do much for me and for the other characters. Like you said, Finn Wittrock, I thought
he was hopelessly miscast.
I wanted to like him. He's got chops. We were doing some research before the show, and I looked to see what he had been in. He had been in a lot of things that we liked. He had been in the Versace miniseries, obviously.
He was great in that.
He was good in that. He was in a couple other things that I thought were very good. He had bit parts here and there in them. Very good. And he went to Juilliard. He's got a lot of chops. He's actually from Lenox, Massachusetts, which is not far from here. So you want to support local guys and everything like that. But I thought he was... Miscast is a good way to put it, and perhaps more tactful than I would have put it. It's just, I just didn't think he was very good in it. He came across like he was trying to be psychotic. And that's a kind of role that I think given like the proper preparation or the proper actor or the certain look or something like that, is that you can really own that. Like sort of like Jack Nicholson in Batman as the Joker. You know what I mean? Like you can go over the top and you can still be really good. Whereas this one, I didn't believe him, and his character seemed to waffle a lot and seemed to be like, is he psychotic? Is he not? And maybe that was all intentional, but it just took me away from the main goal that Ratched had.
Well, we're probably going to just end up discussing this anyways, but this was a problem I had with the series as a whole, is it didn't know what it wanted to be.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it would be super dramatic and sometimes it would be crazy over the top campy.
Right.
Even in one episode from scene to scene, like there wasn't any kind of consistent tone.
Yeah.
Like I feel like with this cast and with this subject matter, this should have been a fantastic series.
Right.
If they just could have struck one note, figured out what they wanted to do, and just done it consistently from episode to episode. But yeah, I mean, like I said in the summary, even Nurse Ratched herself from episode to episode, it's like they didn't know who they wanted that character to be. So one scene she's got this motivation, and then 3 scenes later she's doing something completely different, and it was just, the whole thing was just sloppy and messy and just with the amount of talent and money that was thrown at this thing, it should have been a whole lot better than it actually was.
I completely agree. And I was trying to put my finger on it when we were watching it, is like why I disliked it so much. Like, what was the reason? I don't think there was any one reason. I mean, the gore to me was off-putting. It was completely unnecessary.
There was another high body count in this. There were lobotomies.
Well, and not only high body counts, but like high body part counts.
Right.
And just unnecessary to me, and just for the sake of being sensational or graphic.
Well, and kind of going along with what I just said, like the entire subplot with Sharon Stone.
Yes.
Like that was completely unnecessary. That did not need to happen whatsoever. So Sharon Stone shows up with a monkey because of course she does, right?
She was great, by the way.
She has a son who is just an a-hole, but she hires the head of the mental hospital to work with him, and incredibly long story short, the kid ends up a quadriplegic. Or what is it when you don't have...
He's not quadriplegic, but he had 4 amputations. His limb
so he lost both of his arms and both of his legs. And so Sharon Stone wants the head of the mental hospital assassinated. But in the end, that didn't have anything to do with anything.
Right.
Like, it didn't...
Well, it added to the stress of the doctor, Dr. Hanover. And by the way, Hanover, we didn't mention him. That was John Briones, and he was fantastic. I thought he was great. He plays a doctor who's under pressure, and he's shady and all that sort of stuff. But you're right, Coco. I mean, that didn't really. I think there was the hit on him, and so it added to his pressure and added to the stress and everything like that. But there were a lot of things that were just unnecessary, like the camp part of it. I agree with. Like it felt campy to me because of the bright colors, and then the acting was kind of all over the place in some scenes and some episodes and some scenes. Like I said, so it was the best way I can put this is, so there's one of the characters is played by Sophie Okonedo, who was fantastic. She was in Criminal, the most recent Criminal series that we saw. She was in one of the episodes.
Please go back and listen to that episode if you haven't already.
And she was great. And so she played a character who comes to the hospital because she has dissociative identity disorder, which is multiple personality disorder. And I thought that her character was the personification of this series, is that she was playing all these different, she was, I don't know, Jesse Owens or somebody like that. Like she was somebody from the 36 Olympics. And then she was, another character, and she played all these different characters, and they were all various extremes. And that was the series to me, is that there was just like these highs and lows, and they were not. You don't want it to be telegraphed. You don't want to expect these things, but there's also unexpected that's just out of the blue and just doesn't make any sense at all. And I think that that's what this series was. Is like all of a sudden somebody's arm gets cut off, and it's like, what? Why are you doing that to me? Like I'm eating my chili here, like.
And she did a very good job with that character, but that character to me was completely unnecessary.
Like, why was that character in there?
Right. I mean, at the end, spoiler alert, she busts the foster brother out of prison or out of the mental hospital. But any other number of ways that could have happened. Like, this character did not need. And I actually, when she was first introduced, she went to the mental hospital and it appeared as though she had been cured. And so I said to adults, this lady's a plant, right? Like, this lady is faking having a mental illness so that she can be miraculously cured, and Ratched can go to the governor and say, see, this mental hospital works wonders. You don't need to execute, my brother if we just, well, even though nobody at that time knew he was her brother, but like, if we can do this with this lady with multiple personalities, then think of what we can do with this guy. He can be rehabbed, and so I thought for sure Sophie Okonedo's character was a plant and had been paid off by Ratched to fake her mental illness, and then that turned out not to be the case, and her character turned out to be just completely superfluous in the end. Well, and she killed somebody major as well, but that also could have happened in any number of other ways.
Right. There was a lot of opportunities for that character to be killed.
Right.
Let's put it that way. I thought that she was fantastic, and whenever she was on the screen, just like she was on the screen for Criminal, I was riveted at her performance, and I was like, I could tell she was acting, but it was so good that I got lost in watching the character, and I thought she was fantastic. I want to just review some other things that we could have done with the 8 hours.
Well, can I say one more thing?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I wasn't done. I just wanted to break it up.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So you can do your 8 hours.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So the other big thing I had was there were just so many just dumbass things that happened. Like, this is a mental hospital, and I'm not trying to perpetuate the stereotype that mentally ill people are violent, but the doctor in charge of the mental hospital just leaves his office wide open with like a charcuterie board with knives on it and like a letter opener, both of which get used to...
And an unlocked desk with a gun in it.
And an unlocked desk drawer with a gun in it. And I'm like, that's not smart. Like, what's going on? And then other stuff like that happened too. Like, the foster brother makes one getaway attempt and then gets recaptured and gets taken right back to the same mental hospital that he was able to break out of. I'm like, there's just so many plot holes and just...
Well, and Cynthia Nixon's character gets shot.
Right.
I don't want to spoil it. She gets shot in the heart, like point blank from about 3 or 4 feet away, by this in this one very pivotal scene, and it looks like she's done. Like, it looks like she's had half of her body blown away. She's bleeding all over the carpet. And then in the next episode, which is this is a sequential series, and it's like the next day or 2 days later or whatever, she's walking around and she's lifting a suitcase and like, just no.
And they go to like a puppet show and
they're on the road and she's in the car. Like, you know how much pain she would be in if that were real? Like, it just...
Yeah, she's like the governor. She's the governor's press secretary. The governor played by Vincent D'Onofrio. And she's like, the governor needs me for a campaign rally in Modesto. So on the way, I thought we could stop at a puppet show in Sacramento. And I'm like, why are you going back to work? You just got shot. Like, I would think that... Like, when did FEMLA come into play? Because I would think you would be able to use FEMLA at that point if you don't have any PTO.
Probably eligible for some time off after getting your shoulder blown off. Right, totally. Like from 3 or 4 feet away, max. Like, it was just, there's some unbelievable stuff about that. I mean, you have to, in certain instances, like, this is Hollywood, so in certain instances you have to, have plausible deniability about all this sort of stuff. But I just think that... it was unrealistic in parts. And like you said, like, they're going to ship the guy, after he escapes, this mass murderer who's going to be getting a chair, they just ship him back to the same place. It's like, oh, he's not going to escape again. Right,
like, put him in a prison and have the shrink come to him.
Right. And also, by the way, all this stuff that they're trying on him, apparently it didn't work.
Right, yeah.
So don't put him back in the place where it didn't work. It just, there are a lot of holes there, like you said. So so the 8 hours...
Okay, sorry.
You're all good. 8 hours, we could have driven to Burlington, Vermont and back.
Oh.
And we could have also watched Irishman 2.5 times.
Oh, yikes.
And we also, I could have done a full shift for the U.S. Postal Service. Oh. So I could have delivered all our mail.
All the mail ballots.
For the, yeah, I could have done that for the neighborhood. I would have done that instead. Or watch squirrels bury their nuts in the backyard.
Have you been watching a lot of that lately?
Well, I'm unemployed, so yes.
I mean, we're coming to the end of Netflix, so, you got to watch something.
You're thinking I'm looking out the window, for inspiration about the podcast, and actually I'm just watching the squirrels and their nuts. So, what else, Coco? What else do we want to say about this that we haven't already savaged it with?
I don't know. We've talked about just how bad it was from top to bottom, so I think that kind of covers it. I will say Sharon Stone looks like I think Madonna would look if Madonna hadn't had any work done. So that was because she had like the late 80s like Vogue hair that Madonna had, the hairstyle with the waves. So
I see there's so many things that I liked about it, and I want to like the whole package, but I just don't. Like, I thought Sharon Stone's character was fantastic. The way she acted it and played it, it was great. You know, I didn't like her at all. And she was distasteful in a lot of ways, but that was great that I felt that. You know, it evoked an emotion. And like I said, Judy Davis and Sarah Paulson was good at what she was doing. But yeah, just not the sum of its parts. I mean, I laughed in parts where I shouldn't be laughing.
Right.
I was cringing at the gore. I was, looking at my phone.
Yeah, I legit covered my eyes every time there was a lobotomy. Like episode 2, there were a lot of lobotomies in episode 2. So just be warned if you haven't watched this yet.
And this is also, as you probably have surmised, listener, this is 1947 lobotomies. So, chisels and hammers and all sorts of things like that are being used.
I'll add a nice thing. I did like that it didn't, speaking of lobotomies, hit you over the head with the fact that it was showing you how bad things used to be. And do we really want to go back to that? Like, do we really want to go back to somebody's getting a lobotomy because they're gay?
Right.
Or because they're a teenager and they have a short attention span?
Right.
Or whatever. Like, the mental health field has come so far in 60, 70 years. Like, there's been so many advances made. Like, that's how it was not a very long time ago. And there were some other sort of like social justice warrior things that were very subtle that were said. Mm-hmm. I was kind of interested in, like, at the very end, Nurse Ratched and Cynthia Nixon's character weren't even trying to hide the fact that they were in a relationship. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I know it's California, but would that really be a thing that they would do in the late 40s, early 50s? Like, I don't know if California was still that much more liberal back in the day that two lesbians could just be out and open. Mm-hmm. Like, I did also think it was kind of gross that they made a character who ended up being like a huge ball buster in her later years a lesbian.
Right. Right. And that's almost kind of like a stereotype too, right? About the nurse. Mm-hmm.
So that was just some other stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that was one of the things that I observed in my review on cocoandults.com. Was
I need to read that.
It's fresh on the press too. This was number one when we finished watching it last night. It was number one when we started watching it, I think, last week.
Yeah,
I don't understand how that's possible. So it gives me it now makes me doubt whether these things are, if there's some sort of cooking the books going on by Netflix to get people to watch things, because there's no way that people with families are watching this. And that's got to be the largest chunk of Netflix's audience.
And okay, I'll tell you how the podcast sausage is made here, listener. So back over the summer, this was getting a lot of buzz. So at the beginning of September, when we saw the list of stuff coming out on Netflix for this month, we saw Ratched's coming out on September 18th, and we added it to our list of things to watch. The week before it came out, some advanced reviews started coming out, and the reviews were like middling at best. Mm-hmm. So just as an aside to what Dalch just said, if the reviews aren't good, how are people, I don't know, they're probably starved for content. That's probably how. Yeah. But anyways, so the reviews were middling at best, and we were like, well, we're still going to give it a shot. It's got a good cast, whatever. And we watched the first episode, and we kind of looked at each other, and we were like, all right, let's give it one more episode. So then we watched the second episode, and we were like, yeah, no, we're good. We don't have to watch any more of this. And we turned the TV off, and we put the remote down, and we walked away. But then I started thinking about it, which is not why Dalt bought me. Like, he doesn't, not for my brain. So
untrue, listener.
So the next day I went to Dalt's and I said, neither one of us likes this. So it's going to make a hell of a good podcast episode if we just finish watching this series, because then we're just going to be ripping on it like the whole time.
Listener.
So Dalt said, yeah, I've been thinking about that too. I think that's right. So that's why we killed ourselves watching this, because it's been like pulling teeth for the past week and a half trying to finish this thing because it's so bad.
So a couple of things about that is that Away, another Netflix series. I think it's 8 episodes as well, 8 or 10.
I think it was 10.
10 episodes. It got similar lukewarm reviews, but had a lot of buzz going into it. I could understand why that was number one for as long as it was, because it's a feel-good kind of thing. It's families could have watched that. And there's a certain age range where you could go down to like 10 or 12 or maybe even younger, and everybody can sit and watch that and understand it and get a thrill ride out of it. So that makes sense to me that you would get good numbers out of that series, which we previously have reviewed on a different podcast.
Please listen to that episode if you haven't already.
And the other thing about that is that with Ratched, you're not getting, like, anybody under 18 who's watching that is not they're not in a good home. I'm overstating it, but like if my oldest daughter was to watch that and watch it all the way through, then I would be concerned. And I think that's misleading about the whole, this is number one, this is trending number one. I think they're cooking the books a little bit. They're not going to put Due Date in number one because Due Date is not one of their movies, right? It's in their library. It's something they bought, obviously, but they didn't produce it. So they have a vested interest in putting their stuff up front. So I'm not sure about the algorithm there in terms of what's number one and what's not.
Well, I think another part of that might be that, has there really been any original Netflix content released since September 18th? I mean, there might be
not like this.
Yeah, not like this. So that might be why they're keeping it propped up.
Yeah.
If that's indeed what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, that's a conspiracy theory on my part. It has no grounding whatsoever, but
we would still like money, Netflix. So please contact us.
Cocoa adults. But I have doubts about the veracity of those numbers, but whatever. I mean, it seems like it's getting buzz. I don't think it'll stay long. And I don't think it's going to get, I'm out on season 2.
We're not watching season 2 at all.
Like, I know I said that after watching season 2 of Goliath. I was like, I'm not watching season 3 of Goliath, but I liked Billy Bob Thornton so much that even with
the amputations,
even the rampant amputations that made no sense whatsoever in that one, I was back because I like Billy Bob Thornton and I liked the female lawyer character who was really good. I've forgotten her name, but the one that we think should get her own series.
Yeah, totally, the blonde lady.
Yeah, she was fantastic. So I like their dynamic, and I like the fact that she called his BS all the time. But there was nobody likable in this one, so I'm not back for this one. And apparently they've renewed for the second season, so the idea was there would be 2 seasons right off the hop. But man, oh man, if there's going to be more than 2 seasons, I don't know.
Yeah, there's no way we're watching season 2. Like, I'm done. I don't care about the showdown between Ratched and her foster brother.
No.
Like, I don't care if... Oh, and so Cynthia Nixon also got cancer. So that's another thing about her character. Like, basically, immediately after she gets shot, she gets cancer.
Right.
So I don't care if her character lives or dies.
Wow.
I don't care about...
Or Cynthia Nixon's character.
I don't care about Judy Davis. Like,
I don't care about them.
You said something after the first 2 or 3 episodes where you wish it had been more of like a head-to-head of Judy Davis versus Sarah Paulson. And I think that would have been a great series, because to see how Ratched got, to where she was, she could have learned at the hand of Judy Davis.
Right.
Like, she could have been Ratched 1.0, and right. Nurse Ratched comes into this mental hospital and she's dealing with this huge ball buster, like that would have been great. And then you would have had these 2 gifted actresses going head to head.
Right.
Like, that would have been awesome. And instead we just got this.
I thought that's where they were going too. Like, I thought that's what they were setting up, is that, okay, Nurse Ratched is the way she is in One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest because she learned from Judy Davis's character, which is, her name is Betty Bucket, I think.
Betsy Bucket.
Betsy Bucket.
Yeah.
Of course.
Which is hilarious.
Nurse
Bucket.
What are you going to do if you put your boot to her? You're going to kick the bucket, obviously. So I thought that was setting up for development of the character, and like the following in the footsteps, and everybody needs a mentor and all that sort of stuff. So I thought it was going to go that way, but it didn't. It just went in different directions. And again, there's predictable, and then there's expected, and then there's boring, but somewhere along the line you've got to kind of go in the logical direction. It's not necessarily the boring and expected direction, but the logical, this is what would happen in real life kind of direction. And we didn't get that at all from that storyline. I thought that was a lost opportunity, because they had some really good chemistry when they were battling each other. And
then at the end, like the last couple episodes when they kind of teamed up, they
Right.
had really good chemistry then too.
Right.
And so that would have been
Yeah.
great to see them go from like hardcore enemies to, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like allies, you know,
Like buddy cops.
Lethal Weapon with like,
Yeah, like there one scene in
Bone
there,
Cop back up.
they're getting in the car together and it's like, okay, hit it. Like it was like the Blues Brothers or something like that. Like
Totally.
it was actually pretty cool, but it's not going to go that way. It just its story is just too twisted to even do that. So that again is a lost opportunity. I would watch a series with the two of them solving crimes or whatever, you know, trying to make people sane again or whatever it ends up being. But it's not going to be that. It's going to be the twisted brother overacting and coming back and trying to, which was disorienting too, because they were pals at certain point of the movie and earlier on in the series, I should say, and then they developed, and then all of a sudden in the last two episodes they're like, okay, I hate you, and it seemed affected to me. It seemed like it was not logical, and it seemed like it was put on. So maybe, you know, artificially introduced to add tension. It just didn't do anything for me.
To separate the two of them for season 2 so
Right.
they can have a storyline for season 2.
So have conflict for season 2 because now
Right.
the nurses are getting along, so they can have some other conflict now that they killed the hitman guy. You know, what else is there? And the doctor's dead. You know, like
Right.
spoiler. Right. I don't care.
Right. When Daltz doesn't care, you know he really dislikes something. So along those lines, how many lobotomies up would you give this Daltz?
How many cadavers?
Right.
How many? I'd give this 2 severed arms down.
Wow.
Yeah, this is just not my cup of tea at all.
Yeah, no.
It could have been, and it's a disappointing 2 arms down because I think this had a lot of potential, like you said, with the cast and the production values and the screenwriters and the director and the producer. Like everything was there. So if you're in the elevator pitch and you're getting this pitch, you're saying, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'll do this if I'm Netflix, you know. But man, it disappointed me all the way through. Like I had to, as Coco will attest, I need a palate cleanser every now and then when we watch something. So I'll watch like an episode of The Twilight Zone or something quick that'll, you know, spice me up a little bit. Last night, after the conclusion of this, I needed 3 episodes of the Trailer Park Boys to get the to get the taste out of my mouth of Ratched.
This is how much he did not want to finish Ratched, listener. I've been teasing him for a month that we're going to watch Cobra Kai. He absolutely does not want to watch Cobra Kai, but in the week and a half that we've been trying to finish Ratched, like every time we put on Netflix, he's like, hey, Cobra Kai, you want to watch some Cobra Kai? And I'm like, you don't want to watch Cobra Kai. And he's like, but you do, let's watch Cobra Kai. Like he is volunteering to watch something he has zero interest in because he disliked this so much.
Ratched has broken me. And my spirit is broken by Ratched. I'm just a wreckage of a man.
Well, I'm glad that happened because of that, not because of me. You know, I'm glad that you're not saying that about me. Like, even though I'm the one who was like, we should finish watching this. Like, sorry about that.
Well, just to attest to our professionalism, listener, that we pushed all the way through this. We watched 2 episodes willingly and then 6 episodes strapped to the chair with our eyes open, like in the
Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange.
Yeah. Not the electric chair like they've got going in California in 1947.
Maybe.
So I would give this a D-.
Yeah.
I'm only not giving this an F because I loved Corey Stoll and Cynthia Nixon was also incredibly good.
Corey Stoll was in it for like 15 minutes.
I know, he should have been in it. He was like basically a glorified cameo, but he was hilarious. Like,
really?
Yeah, like what was it, episode 2 or episode 3 when he and Nurse Ratched, he was like, you're the worst lay of my life. Like, he was hilarious. I was dying laughing. And Vincent D'Onofrio in episode 7 was really good too, but otherwise he was like, they put him in a bad fat suit and he was channeling like late career Orson Welles. And
wow, I could see that.
Yeah,
I could
so
see that.
but Cynthia Nixon and Corey Stoll and Charlie Carver, who played Huck the nurse, who was the only decent character in this whole thing, and he got killed in the end.
Spoiler.
No spoilers. Like they're I give it a D- because they were all high quality.
And I think there was a lot of opportunity, like I said, because all the characters were done extremely. It's just that they were extremely, all the extremes just didn't make for a good
Right.
conclusion, good whole. Anyway, you want to take us out of this, Coco, because we're rattling on and on about Ratched.
I know. We hate it so much we just can't stop talking about
If
it.
anybody's still listening,
Right. If you want to listen to other reviews of things that we perhaps liked a little bit better, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Google Play, YouTube, IMDb, Ghana if you're in India, and we are now also on Amazon Music. Chickadee, check us out there. We would love it if you would rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so that other people could find us. You can find us on the interwebs to read Dalt's 8,000 word treatise on why Ratched sucks at cocoanddalts.com. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at Coco and Dalts. And if you want to email us, let us know what you think of this episode, what you want us to review in the future, just say hi. Our email address is cocoanddalts@gmail.com.
like us, share us, love us, donate to us.
That would be fantastic.
These are the action points that we're asking of you, listener. And spread the word.
Go to cocoanddalts.com and click on the donate to support the podcast button. We'd appreciate it.
It's pretty obvious,
Yeah.
right? There's nothing else on the homepage, I don't think, except donate.
I think there's a picture of us, maybe.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
That's true.
Maybe we should change it, like have a glamour shot if we want people to donate.
Maybe we should do like a picture of a big check, one of those big fake checks, you and I, and then just have a blank spot in the middle.
Yeah, like Ed McMahon, like taking that big
Right.
check to people, like the Publishers Clearinghouse check back in
Yeah,
the
the
80s.
sweepstakes.
Oh my God, I just so dated myself. So on that note, thank you for listening to this episode. I'm not Daltz.
And I'm not Coco.